for those who were able to do it. If not, rewatch this. You can do that later. But yeah, we just setting the vibes. So thank you all for joining me and being in this energy. I hope you're feeling, you know, as T and Britt pointed out, zen, blissed out, peaceful, and this is gonna be a good one. All right, so let's hop into the message for the day. So before we do that, sorry, housekeeping things as always. Community and Telegram, it is in the description below. Please join if you have not joined. We get daily affirmations. We have music that we share in there. We have future plans for a group meditation, which I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier. I'm super excited about this. So sometime this month, we're definitely going to do a group meditation, kind of like what we did just now. Um, so, get your headphones in and we'll just do that over at Telegram and lock in and set some intentions. I mean, the new moon as well is happening right now. That's not going to be too much a part of the message, but I might as well. So for those of you who don't know, um, B has a wonderful video out that she just put out about what's coming for the month. So, feel free to check that out. I meant to put that in the description, but life is life. So I'll put it here for you guys. Check that out. So our very own B, aka Elevation 44, dropped another one. And I'm going to probably put this into the Spiritual Gems chat as well when I have the opportunity. Matter of fact, I think I can do that now. So yeah, I'm going to put that in there now for the people them, to get a nice watch. So yeah, man. So I just want to let you guys know about that. So yep, it's Virgo season. Tap into that energy for your healing. Very necessary right now. Let me think. What else do we have housekeeping wise? Oh, sessions are available for those who feel called. If you're looking to kind of receive a deeper healing, get some more clarity about where you're going. If you're having some tough time pushing through some trauma that you're working through, if you're feeling blocked, if you just need more clarity in general, book a session with me. We'll tap in with your guides and get some information, get some healing about, where you can go, what needs to happen for you to move forward, things of that nature. So definitely tap in with that. I have sessions available as we speak. Some other things that we have going on. Let me think about this real quick. Also in those sessions, by the way, we go over a bit of your astrological chart to help make sure that you're on the right path. We get a deeper understanding of who you are as well. We also use a little bit of your human design to understand you as an archetype, and I give you sort of like tips and tricks on how to sort of hack, for lack of a better word, your design to understand yourself better, and so that you could be more successful in the things that you desire to be successful with. So yeah, book a session. You won't regret it. All right, fam, we ready to get started? I think I hope I didn't put y'all to sleep. Oh man. Let me get some ones if y'all ready to get started. If y'all ready to get active. Looks like we lost a few people. As a reminder, please like, share, subscribe for anyone that is new. Liking helps helps push this content out on the algorithm. So yeah, I would appreciate that. If you guys feel called to like it. All right, looks like the homies are ready. Okay, so we're talking about a few things today, but one of the things that I want to start with is I'm going to share a symbolic dream that I had recently. I had a dream about a storm coming. I was like watching the news in my dream, And basically there was a storm that was coming in my dream. And what was interesting about this was, so I'm watching this like meteorologist talk about, or the news just talk about this giant storm. Now this storm was huge, absolutely massive. So I'm watching on the TV and they're showing what the potential of the storm would be. You know, when you look at hurricanes, they track where it's going to go. And well, for one, the hurricane was coming from the west side of the US, which is more rare. I think sometimes storms can kind of start over at that Mexico side, the west side of Mexico, can sometimes hurricanes can develop there. But it wasn't coming from that side. So not from the southwest. It was coming from more like the direct west, or I guess northernish west, right? So it was coming from the Asia side. So I thought that was interesting. So it was developing this storm. They showed kind of where it's developing on like the Polynesian-ish island, somewhere around there, which was very interesting. Anyways, this hurricane literally was the size of the US. And so I'm looking at this shit on Doppler radar, and the colors that were in it were very interesting. There was like all red with a little bit of white and pink in there. And typically when you see that, that's usually the densest like part of the storm, right? Where the lightning strikes are the heaviest, where the rain torrential downpour is the heaviest, or the snow is the heaviest. So this, obviously there's no snow in a hurricane. Typically it might be hail, but typically no snow. Anyway, so yeah, so it's just like this giant storm, and it was the size of the US, like just massive, right? If you can imagine this. And so obviously I realized that it was a symbolic dream. And what I felt from it was like, yo, the storm is coming, right? And this is not to place fear into you guys or anything like that, because I kind of feel like we've been hinting to this anyway. Something is coming. There's a lot of messages out there at this point explaining what that could potentially be about and how it'll shape out. None of that really matters. But anyways, what I want to focus on is like, yes, this storm was massive and scary, but I thought to myself in the dream, I'm like, yo, I'm from the islands, right? Like we get hurricanes all the time. You know what I mean? Like, well, what typically happens in a hurricane is, for most places, thank goodness, the entire home, you know, I've never experienced extreme damage that I know of to any of my homes. Thank God. I've always been, you know, protected. But even if that is the case, for the people who do receive damage, like we always move forward, right? As long as the person doesn't like die from the hurricane, and it's happened, very small numbers, like one or two. But generally speaking, it's like we get through the storm, and it's like the air just smells more clean. Everything is just kind of cleared out. Now, obviously, there's less green on the trees because, you know, most of the leaves are gone, but this is a level of cleansing that happens during these storms. And it's like, yo, it might seem tough for a little bit because, you know, you might be out of power and it's a little inconvenient, but we always bounce back. You know what I mean? It's never truly over. And so I feel like as a collective, especially here in the West, in the US specifically, is like where this storm is a cleansing of sorts that's coming, right? So what I'm saying to you is just allow the storm to pass. Be the eye of the storm. Don't be surprised, and don't get your energy mucked in a bunch with all the shit that's coming. Okay? You're safe. Everything is working out for you. And just like how I was always protected in the storm, somehow, some way, my house always was safe. No matter what the category, 3s, 4s, 5s, we just always made it through with minimal damage. Okay? And that's a testament to your spirit team who's going to protect you during these times that are to come. So I hopefully that I've implanted, or if you decide to receive, a seed of safety and love that you would develop within yourself to know that you're fine, even amongst the bullshit. Because this level of chaos that happens during a hurricane is purposeful, because this needs to be cleansed. A change needs to happen. So just for whatever reason, Spirit wanted me to share that. And so hopefully that resonates for who it's supposed to resonate for. That said, the power of presence. Okay, so I want to start there. So the power of presence, you know, I said something like this the other day in the Telegram. After I put in an affirmation, it kind of came to me as like, yo, like the present is a gift, right? Like it's like we're lucky to have it, and we don't spend enough time in the present. A lot of the times we are in the past and the future, which makes us anxious. And so there's a power in being present in the moment, like just connecting to the breath like we did a few moments ago. Like, you know why that felt good? Obviously, because we're breathing and we're connecting to the breath, which is another way of actually saying spirit, by the way. Spirit is the breath. But the part of the reason why we felt so good is because we were just focused on this thing, right? And what this thing was bringing us, right? This is a moment of gratitude that we're spending, a moment of prayer within ourselves, right? So it's really as simple as that, you know. And sometimes it's challenging to remember that when our um, ego is off the chain, but understand that, like, yo, the present is the greatest gift that we can have. That's the best place to be in terms of gratitude, is to be present. Obviously, you can use the future and what you want the future to look like to make you happy and to, you know, be in a place of gratitude as well. And you can also look at the past for the good times and even the bad times and be grateful that you're not in those moments, or grateful for the lessons that you integrated from the past. But I want to remind you guys as well that the present is a present. So be in your presence. That's a bar. I hope y'all write that down. That's a bar. All right. So just be in gratitude, man. Yeah. Don't allow the mind to get into the past or the future. It just really helps so much. Easier said. Let me not say easier said than done. Sometimes that can be challenging, but I believe in you guys and I know you guys can do it. Okay. All right. Another thing that came to my mind was this dependence on others in our spiritual journey. Um, hmm. Listen, there's nothing wrong with reaching out and using others along your journey to Jersey, that's hilarious. Along your journey to assist you in your healing process and allowing you to ascend. But I want to remind you, we have this programming that we've learned and picked up through time, that our power is really outside of ourselves. So we look to our parents, we look to authority figures, we look to um, our government, we look to people outside of ourselves all the time. We look to, you know, our religion and the doctrines within that to guide us and validate us. But I want you guys to know that you gotta begin to trust yourself and know that you know that you know. Like, trust that you have the answers within you. Trust that you have the guidance that you need within you. So yeah, you're booking a session with me, but like I'm really tapping into your energy. The only reason like I'm able to help you or you need my help really is because your ego got you in a bunch right now and you just can't get through it. But I want you to know that like you don't need anything or anyone outside of yourself to validate your experience, to tell you that you're powerful. Or if spirit gives you something to do, like, hey, spirit, do you want me to, you know, apply to this job? You already know spirit gave you the idea, they gave you the feeling, right? So now you're going to get like this is no disrespect to the people out there who do any type of readings, because I'm one of them, right? We are necessary. But I want you to understand that we don't want to ever get an over dependence on these things, right? Because sometimes we'll get into a situation like, and I'm like this too, where I have to check myself, where I'm like, yo, like I'm going through some shit and I'm like, damn, I wish I could get like a tarot reading so I could understand more. But when I sit down and I tap into my energy, spirit tells me what's going on within me and I know it and I just have to trust it. You know what I'm saying? That's part of the process. So know that you are empowered by yourself. You feel me? Everything that anyone else has to add is just the icing or the cherry on the cake, but you're the cake. You know what I mean? What's that saying that when people ask, what do you bring to the table? And people love to say, I am the table. So have that same energy when it comes to life. You are the cake. You know what I'm saying? Anything else is just the icing on the top. Yeah. One's in the chat if you're following me. Por favor, gracias. I want to make sure y'all feeling what I'm saying. Okay. All right, let's move on. Other messages that we need to get through before we get into the deep stuff. So in light of this, okay, or to maybe illustrate it a little bit more, there was something that Professor Melanie had said some years ago that Britt brought it back into my awareness. Excuse me. It's like, what would you do if you're stranded on an island by yourself? Right? Like, what the hell would you do if you were stranded on an island by yourself? You would have no choice but to depend on yourself to survive, correct? Now, I'm not saying that this is how you get into a level of you can't trust other people and hyper independence, because I'm not saying that everything requires balance. But what I'm speaking to is that sometimes our first instinct should be checking in with ourselves first and listening to that inner voice or that higher voice that has given us the guidance. So again, I'm not saying this in the sense to give hyper independent people the idea, the inkling that like, oh, I'm always just depending on myself. Because no, spirit might tell you, you need to go see this person, have a conversation with this person because they're gonna help. But back to the example, the question that I asked, it was a rhetorical question, is like, what would you do if you're stranded on an island by yourself? Well, you have no choice but to depend on yourself, right? You have no choice but trust in your knowing of what to do and how to survive. Right? You'll be pulling from your knowledge and your understanding. You might be asking God or speaking within yourself to like, what should I do? Where should I go to get shelter? You know what I mean? Like, you'd have no choice but to depend on yourself. So just keep that same energy, just remember that, like, I'm saying this for you to be more empowered within yourself. Cause some of us, let me not just say y'all, some of us can be too dependent on the outside authorities to help us out when all of the answers and things that we need are within us. Okay. All right. So let's move forward. So just tap into yourself, learn to be more resourceful, right? Learn to meditate, et cetera, et cetera. All right. We'll talk about that another time. Cool. So finally, we are at today's message. All right. So so what we're going to start off by discussing is, because here's the thing, we're going to be talking about cognitive dissonance. And has anyone heard of the term cognitive dissonance before? Y'all can let me know in the chat if you have or have not. But this is what came to me this week. So we're going to be diving and talking about cognitive dissonance and diving into the ego a bit. Peace. I'm awake. Thanks for pulling up. Okay, so for those of you who may or may not know, whatever, let's jump into it. Cognitive dissonance is the mental discomfort or tension that arises when a person holds two or more contradictory beliefs, attitudes, or values at the same time, or when their actions conflict with their beliefs. This discomfort often motivates people to resolve the inconsistency by changing their beliefs, attitudes, or behaviors to restore mental harmony. Okay. So, cognitive dissonance can deeply affect a person's ego, especially when a dissonance challenges their self-image or self-worth. All right, so here's an example of how this works. So imagine someone who sees themselves as an honest and ethical person, but they find themselves lying or cheating in a situation, right? Or cheating on a test. This behavior clashes with their self-perception as a moral individual, creating cognitive dissonance. To protect their ego and reduce the discomfort, they might, one, rationalize the behavior. They might say something like, it was just one time and everyone else was cheating too, right? They might minimize the importance of said action. It's not that big of a deal, it's just a small test. Or they might change their belief, right? So they may even begin to see themselves as less honest, which could negatively impact their self esteem. So when dissonance threatens the ego, people often go to great lengths to resolve it, either by changing their behavior or altering their beliefs to maintain a positive self image. So we see this all the time, cognitive dissonance. Many a time I see people who may operate very much in a logical space. Uh, Most times, maybe even lean into science. But when it comes to their spirituality, they'll completely, buy into faith. And so when you offer them like maybe something similar to a faith act, or maybe explaining something that can't necessarily be tangibly tested as factual or true. So let's say you have, I don't know, a prediction of something to come, or let's say you saw something or you feel something within someone, and they don't want to believe you because it's like you can't possibly know, because of the preconceived notions and the ideas that they have in their mind. They might go through a level of cognitive dissonance. You typically see this a lot of the times when people are faced with maybe things that are considered conspiracy theory, right? So one might say, oh, our establishments wouldn't allow seed oils that were harmful in all of our foods if it wasn't good for us, right? Like they wouldn't put harmful, um, thyroid disrupting chemicals and pesticides on the vegetables and the foods, even if they're organic, right? Like they wouldn't do that. Like, why would they do that? They would never do that. I don't believe that they would do that. So that's a level of cognitive dissonance, because even though it's been proven that that's the case, their their refusal to accept that that is a possibility really comes from the ego wanting to prioritize safety. Because if you were to admit that maybe your food supply has been purposely poisoned to, I don't know, make more money for the pharmaceutical companies, and them being in bed together with the food industries, who simply just want the food to last longer. So they create GMO products so that they can have a longer shelf life. So typically you have an organic apple that say might have a shelf life of maybe 7 to 10 days, freshly picked. Now with these particular pesticides and waxes that's on the fruit, can now sit and look like they're brand new for like 6 months. And then we're really forgetting about the fact that apples have a season. So now you're wondering like, yo, how am I able to get these apples all year everywhere? Don't really add up. But cognitive dissonance would say, well, oh, like that's not the case. It's not harmful. You know, an apple needs oxygenation in order for it to turn. Because when you bite into an apple or like a banana, like when it's exposed to air, it'll like get brown and turn brown, right? So you're biting into this apple and it looks clean. It tastes like an apple, but the food is really trash and fake, and it's really doing a lot of harm to your body. Right. So what am I highlighting here? Why are we talking about cognitive dissonance? It's because it's important to know that this is a part of your ego and the things that it does a lot of the times to help you survive situations. I told you guys that we would be diving more into these types of topics to help you understand yourself. And so this is going to go into our next segment, where we're going to watch a video from Bashar. He's going to kind of begin to tie in more about the ego and how you can integrate it, right? Because again, I don't want the ego. I've said this a bunch of times. I don't want the ego to, or make it seem like the ego is the enemy, because that's not the case, right? The ego is here in support of you, right? But you do need to learn how to work with it in order to do life better, if that makes sense. All right. So, yeah, let's get to it. Give me 1 second while I pull up this video, and we will allow our Bashar to blow our proverbial minds. Let me pause this namaste music, because this is making me and I probably need to grab y'all attention. Are y'all with me? Y'all fall asleep? Y'all here? Y'all a little quiet today. Where y'all at? I can't even find the window right now. Can I get some hellos? Just want to make sure y'all with me. I see there's 3 people here, but fam, where y'all at? Where y'all at? Where y'all at? Let me get some ones or something. Let me know that you're here. Let me know that you're aware in here and that you're with me. All right, cool. Thanks, B. Appreciate you. Yep, there we go. All right. Just want to make sure y'all can hear me and stuff. All right, so this actually comes from, and I highly recommend that y'all watch this. I forgot to link the video. I'll do this at the end. This video is very, very, very powerful for me, at least. Bashar, man, he's just, man, Bashar and Daryl Anka, brilliant, 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 brilliant. But yeah, let me know if you guys didn't hear this. And what we're going to talk about, or what I want you guys to be aware of, is he's going to kind of talk about the structure of the ego. All right, so let's get right to it. Ain't nothing to do but to do it, and to get right to it.
At any given moment. So the ego's job is to amplify those beliefs, to keep you focused in physical reality, to keep you focused in that experience. But when there is a degree of forgetting that exists to the extent that it has in your reality, very often, because of that sense of disconnection, because of that experience of disconnection, not that you're ever really disconnected, because you cannot be, but you can create the experience of disconnection to such a degree that the physical personality structure, the ego structure, can forget that it's not actually the one in charge, can forget that it has a helpmate in the template reality called the higher mind, can forget that it is not doing this alone. And in suddenly finding itself in the experience of being alone, it starts to build up the idea of fear. It starts to reinforce belief systems in a way that perpetuates its existence beyond the necessary level that it is actually required to generate for its continued existence. It starts to think that if it is all there is, then it's in charge of everything. The burden and the weight of the world is on its shoulders. The responsibility for everything that happens in your physical reality is up to the ego structure, and it starts to take on that job when it is not built for that job. It starts to burden itself, stress itself. And in that way, it starts to break down. It starts to do wildly incongruous, wildly irrational things to strengthen itself, and strengthen itself under the feeling that it is crumbling under the weight. And by constantly reinforcing and strengthening itself in a way it was not designed to do, it can become extremely dense, extremely crystallized, and very difficult then to allow to expand back out into its more relaxed state, its more relaxed focus. And when it gets that concentrated, the amount of energy the ego puts into belief systems that are generally fear-based are going to be almost overwhelming. Because it is taking on this burden from a perspective of fear, most of its energy, most of its reinforcement is going to be fear-based. It's going to choose those things that are based on survival mode. It's going to reinforce itself with the idea that it must survive at all costs at this concentrated level. Otherwise, your life will end. It will be annihilated. The personality will dissolve. So the ego structure does everything it can to take on this tremendous burden. Let's all give the poor little ego a break before the ego breaks down. Therefore, in this day and age, even in that concentration of ego-filled personality structure, even in that degree of density, look, you have still felt that little seed, that little urge that calls you back to the higher self, back to that frequency, back to the light. Even from that deep degree of murky darkness, you still were capable of sensing somewhere that there must be some kind of higher vibration that calls to you, that tugs at you, that pulls at your heart, that allows you to feel, to know there is some level of reality wherein the ego is free, the personality is free to be what it was designed originally to be, and that there is no need for the stress and strife and struggle and dire consequences and dire experiences that the ego has for thousands of years on your planet sought to perpetuate in generation after generation after generation, constantly be reinforced and reinforced from generation to generation to generation. Now is the timing that you have finally gotten to the point where the light is bright enough, where enough of you are seeking that light within yourselves, that you are adding that to the collective reality and giving each other better opportunities with your collective momentum to know that there is a level of reality, a level of yourselves, a level of your whole being that is more than capable of reconnecting with you, that you deserve to reconnect with and deserve to lighten your load, lighten up on yourselves, take the load off, drop the baggage, and get on your way through life in an easy and effortless, creative manner. And this is the time and the age on your planet where you're now realizing that, so congratulations. Now, we will share something with you to further strengthen the idea of the many different ways that you are starting to attract yourselves back to your own higher mind.
Okay, so far, at this point, fam, I'm sure you guys, we've discussed this enough that you feel comfortable in understanding everything that he just said about the ego, right? How it works on survival, how it's based off of fear over time, how it feels like it needs to reinforce certain ideas to keep you safe. So all kind of like the same things that we've been talking about over the last several months. So I don't need to dive into that, right? Hopefully you guys understand at this point a deeper understanding of the ego. And for those who are new, please check out my old stuff. You'll get it. All right.
So we will now share a little secret with all of you. Higher minds. So we will now share a little secret with all of you that we have shared with a few, and it is this. In these conversations that you are having with us, whether they be in this group structure or in one-to-one scenarios, doesn't matter. When you are speaking with us, you are actually speaking with your own higher mind. You are not speaking directly with us at all, ever. What we have done to aid and assist you by your invitation is we have wrapped the flavor of our personality like a shell around the core of your own higher self. And in every conversation we have with you, what we are doing thus then is giving you an excuse to talk to your own higher mind by tricking you into thinking you're talking to something else.
Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. All right. So what do we start this off with today with? We touched on why it's important for you to be more reliant on yourself, right? Because at the end of the day, when people channel for you, when people are pulling your cards, pulling you tarot cards, whatever it is, right? It's coming from your higher version of self, which is connected to source. So there is, like, when you really get to into the weeds of this shit, it gets crazy, but it's so simple. At the end of the day, what I want you to take away from this moment is understanding your true power. That, like, yo, once you get past the ego, once you're able to get through and filter that bullshit out that's within your mind, from the programming to the trauma, it just becomes easier to tap into your higher self, and you're able to get the same answers as if a Bashar was speaking to you, as if I was speaking to you, as if whoever else out there that you respect, that leads you, that you know, that you trust their guidance, et cetera, right? And of course there's different levels to this, because you know, you have to be a certain level of have to have a certain level of awareness within yourself to even get to that point and be open to that information. But what I want to reinforce here is just like, yo, like, you're powerful beyond measure. There's nothing special that Daryl is doing that you can't do in your own way. That doesn't mean that you're going to channel a being like Bashar, but you may be able to get information, you know, automate, you do, maybe it's automated writing is your spiel. Maybe it's just clear cognizance. Maybe you're clear audient, whatever it is that you feel. Some people, is it clear sentience? What's the one when you, like, can smell? There's a bunch of clears. It might be a mixture of them, of several of them. But, like, begin to know and begin to rely on your own guidance. This is going to be important, because what is coming in that hurricane dream is a level of being misled, false prophecy, the media. They're all going to be out here telling you a specific story. Okay. They're going to be selling you on some BS, is what I'll call it, for lack of a better term. And your ego is going to want to eat it up, because your ego is designed to be programmed to see and perceive things through the fearful lens of life. Okay. This is why this shit is important. This is why your healing work is important. For those of you out here, and this is, I know it's no one here, because y'all been doing the work, but for those of you listening to this in the future, stop fucking playing around. Like, there's a shift happening, and it's time for you to begin to do the deeper dive into yourself. Like, your spirit team wants you to know, it's like, hey, we're trying to get your attention. It's time to do the work. Stop dancing back and forth and being, I want to, but I don't know. Like, yo, trust yourself and know that it's better on this side. Now, that being said, it's not all doom and gloom. If you decide to go, let's say there's two routes. One route is your higher self. The other one just the other one. With that one will come a level of maybe more struggle, maybe more pain, more trauma, more lessons. I mean, either side has lessons, so maybe not lessons, but different lessons that may be more painful. And it's not that we're trying to avoid pain, because pain is one of the greatest teachers. So just stick with, hopefully you can hear what I'm saying to you. But, like, understand, it's going to be, if you go the other way, it's going to be a lot harder, and it's just unnecessary resistance. But it can become necessary if that's what your soul needs, if that's what you feel like you need in order to develop as into your higher self. Because all of this is about ascension. And what we mean by ascension is like getting back to your highest version of self, which then takes you all the way back to source, God, light, source, the divine energy that is nothing but love. That's the point of all of this. So I don't know who this message is for, but whoever's going to be seeing this from now or in the future, it's time. Let go of the victim mentality. Let go of the old programming. At this point, it's been brought to your awareness enough times, okay? But you keep bullshitting. You keep pussyfooting around as I don't know where that comes from. I feel like that's an island thing to say. You keep pussyfooting around, whatever that means. I think it has to do with cats walking softly, I guess. But the point is like, yo, stop treading water, bro. Stop just surviving. It's time for you to thrive. It's time for you to do the work. It's time for you to transform your life. So listen and take heed into these lessons that Bashar is sharing and these messages that we've been trying to get through as a collective that has been coming through this channel and whatever. But like, find your communities. Understand more about yourself. Know that you need to trust yourself, because guess what? You're going to have information coming from all types of ways. But how are you going to know? As if you're that person on the island, okay, then you're by yourself. How are you going to know what the right thing to do? You have to learn how to get away from the noise, channel within yourself, and find the proper direction for your life. This is where your true power lies. And trust me, I've seen it enough in my life and the lives of the people around me. There's people in here right now that will probably drop mad 100s. And what I'm saying is freaking facts, because they've seen it in their own lives play out. It's much better over here, fam. And by over here, I mean making the decisions to do the work, to heal yourself, to let go of the old ideas that you think work for you. Whether that's a job, friendships, relationships, yo, just let go of the shit. And again, that's still challenging, but that's the work. But it's the most beneficial work that you can do for yourself. I don't know why I just started snapping like that, but somebody need to hear that. Let's continue.
Because that something else was one step removed from
Oh,
your higher
man.
mind. In that context, it wasn't as scary to the ego as thinking that you were actually addressing your own higher mind and all that that implies in terms of what you now have to take responsibility for. Therefore, the idea is that if you could find some vibration, some representation of a being that at least would represent that level, but was still one step removed, then it wouldn't be quite as scary and you could deal with it at your own pace in a comfortable way. Well, the idea here is that, yes, while obviously we are involved, the actual communication you are having with us is actually the communication with your own higher mind, but wrapped in our vibrational flavor in order to allow you to use us as a permission slip to give yourselves permission to actually communicate with your own higher minds in a relaxed way and get your assumptions and your beliefs and your definitions and your ego structure out of the way so that you will allow yourself that communication. So congratulations on being so clever as to invite us to help you to trick yourselves into speaking to your higher minds.
Man.
Now, with this realization, then you can begin more and more every day in every way to relax the idea that there is fear attached to speaking and reconnecting to your own higher mind. The ego can now be taught that it will not die. It will not be annihilated just because you are going to make a conscious reconnection to your higher mind. It will be given the opportunity to just do its job in a relaxed, creative, and loving way. It will be given its proper place in the idea of that whole person structure. it will be allowed to simply perform as it was designed to perform. It will not be overburdened with tasks and jobs that do not belong to it, and not only do not belong to it, but for which it is not designed, not capable of actually carrying out. As we have said previously in other transmissions, physical personality is not designed, is not capable, literally not designed to know how something is going to happen. It's not designed to read the giant template where the higher mind resides. It is only designed to know how something is happening or has happened in physical reality. So the idea is that when the ego forgot that it was connected to the higher mind, it thought it needed to take on the duty, the job description of the higher mind of trying to figure out how everything is going to happen. Well, this is my dream. This is my desire. Now, how am I going to make that happen? I don't know, but I'm going to try. I'm going to struggle. I'm going to pull a little at this. I'm going to grab at straws. I'm going to reach out, flail around so I can figure out how to make this work, how to force it to work, how to push everything together in the way that I want it to be. When in fact, it's simply the idea of allowing the higher mind to bring it to you in the way the higher mind knows is best for the whole person that you have.
Man, yo, this is just mind-blowing stuff. Like, how many people in here can relate to that exact thing, right? It gets you, your mind latches onto an idea. You might have figured out what you feel like you're supposed to do, and it's just like you go into fucking panic mode. Like, how am I gonna make this happen? What do I need to do? Yes, I am awake. Control. Like, we wanna control the shit so that we can be the most successful as we can, because we don't want to deal with the failure or the downfalls. We don't want anything to go fucking wrong. Right? Because if something goes wrong, we know what the ego is going to make us feel. Right? It's going to go into because if you make a mistake, then it goes into your value, right? Your self-worth, all the negative like self-beliefs that you have just are triggered by the fact that you fail. Oh, I'm a failure. I'm not good at anything. This would happen to me. Nothing ever good happens to me. Right? They're going to leave me if I don't. They're going to fire me if I don't. Or if I do. All the while, your higher self has a plan. But the whole time, you're literally kicking and fighting and screaming the whole way. And your higher self is like telling you, like, yo, we got this shit. Just follow the little breadcrumbs, bro. I'm guiding you in the best, or sis, I'm guiding you in the best way that this will be the most successful for you. Right? It may not necessarily be what your ego thinks is the quickest route, right? So let's use, I'll take a personal example. Today, I'm looking at my level of viewership, right? I got 98 followers, and mind you, I am super grateful for that, right? We're 2 away from 100. So I'm super excited. So hopefully, 2 will come very soon. But in the midst of that, I'm looking at how much it would take for me to hit this next level on YouTube to where I can really like begin monetizing content and all this kind of stuff. Shit that don't really matter. Right? And I'm sitting here like, yo, I put so much work in just to get to this 98, fam. And I'm like, yo, like, oh, how much more work am I gonna have to go to get to the numbers that I want to hit, right? And then we're looking at these other major players in the space who maybe have been doing this for 15, 20 years, however how long, maybe the first adopters of something. Or you might see someone who's like really killing it, channel's only been out for a certain amount of time, and they're just having this wonderful viral success. And you're comparing that and you're saying to yourself, like, your ego wants that viral success. It wants to get there quickly because then it validates itself, right? And the fear is like, yo, what if you never get there? But who the fuck cares, honestly? Right? Like, it really doesn't matter. Am I doing the work? Am I enjoying what I'm doing? Hell yeah. Do I love healing people? Hell yeah. Do I like opening people's minds? Fucking right. Excuse my language tonight. We just landed out. We're gonna blame it on the Blue Lotus. But ultimately, like, am I doing the thing that lights my soul on fire? Yes, that's what truly matters. The rest of it is gonna come to fruition in its own time. And there's no choice but for me to be successful, especially if I continue doing the things that I'm doing. If I continue to get better at this, if I continue to be consistent, I will ultimately be super successful. But the ego wants the instant gratification. The ego wants to see the success be a viral overnight thing. Meanwhile, my higher self might be telling me, I don't know for sure, but let's say, right, just for the sake of this conversation and to illustrate my point, the ego might be saying, like, yo, your time is coming. Just keep going. Something is coming around the corner. Like, you got to go through this now, because if you get the instant success, you're not going to appreciate it. Your ego will be too involved in it. You'll be too focused on the wrong things, like getting views. You'll be too focused on the comparison. Stay down until you're up. Trust me, it's not too much longer. This is the best way for you to get this thing. And when you're successful, it's going to be sustainable. It won't be an overnight success. And what can happen, and one thing that we don't talk about, is that these channels that get instant virality really early, they tend to burn out. So after a year or two, they're like, I don't even know if I want to do YouTube anymore. And they're taking like 6 months to 2-year breaks. No offense to anyone. I'm just saying, this can happen, right? This is just for comparison purposes. No judgment in this, but I hope y'all understand what I'm trying to put up here, what I'm trying to put down. Well, actually, yeah, I said it right the first time. What I'm trying to put up, right? What I'm trying to bring to your awareness and to your higher mind is just like, yo, like, just trust the process, bro. Trust the process, sis. Trust the process, they, them. It's working out for you. Truly, it's working out for you. It's not working out for your ego because it doesn't need to right now. Your ego is still going to get the wins, right? The ego wants the nice houses, the nice cars, the nice things. Like, that's going to come with the success of the thing, the very thing that you're here to do. You get everything that you truly desire on a soul level, as well as on an egoic level, right? So if you're like, damn, like, I really want my divine partner, well, keep on your mission. Your divine partner has no choice but to show up. And we'll dive into that as well, because sometimes your divine partner ain't even like in a relationship per se. Sometimes it's a friendship, but that's a whole nother thing that we'll unpack another time. But I hope y'all are feeling me on this. Okay, so let go of the ego's control of what needs to happen. Trust the process. I promise you, y'all, there's been there's been so many examples of this in my life. And even then, even with all the examples I've had in my life, sometimes I even struggle with this shit. I'm not gonna hold you. I gotta keep it 100. Sometimes I struggle with these same things that you struggle with, y'all. I ain't above it, but this is the work. I may be down for a little bit, but I'm not down forever. I'm like a day or two and I'm back. A couple hours, I'm back. A couple minutes, I'm back. Because I know that I just have to keep my eye on the prize, bro. I just got to go back to my basics, which is being present, focus on the breath, those types of things, right? Getting outside, right? Maybe, showing myself some love, pouring into myself. When I do those things, it just recharges me. And then when I need the assistance, I reach out to those that help me along the journey. So shout out to some people here that are like that. Shout out to B. Shout out to Britt. Shout out to Tiara. You know what I mean? All of you guys are, shout out to all of you, period, in some way, shape, or fashion. Even those that you feel like I was pouring more into you, the reflection back was that allowing me to see and experience something that I also need to experience for my own confidence, for my own healing, for my own understanding. You hear what I'm saying? So I want to remind you in this moment that you have everything that you need around you right now, even when it doesn't fucking look like it. And that message is probably for me. Or not probably, it is for me. But hopefully it helps you too. Ashe, let's go.
To be best for the themes that you have chosen to explore. Only the higher mind knows how it is best for that to happen, because only the higher mind can see all the way to the horizon, can see the full path ahead, knows where all the twists and turns are, and thus knows what is actually the quickest route to the manifestation of your dreams. But when the physical ego thinks that it knows the best route, it will constantly be slamming into walls, bouncing off of rocks, banging its head into walls, and all sorts of things, because it believes that it knows, and it is the only thing that knows, and it will insist on going certain ways that it has been taught to believe is the quickest path to its dreams and desires, but which very often is actually the longest route. So instead of going around these things, around the things that it defines as obstacles, it will stand in front of them and constantly bash itself against these obstacles, instead of listening to the higher mind that tells it that even though it may seem to take a little longer to go around, it's actually the quickest route, because by going around, you will go that much more quickly than the time it will take for you to stand there and smash your head against the wall.
Message.
Until you finally figure out you're not going to go through it.
Message.
So the idea, again, is to recognize that physical mind does not have the capacity to know how something's going to happen. Let that be the job of the higher mind. Just allow the physical mind to enjoy what it is brought, to see how it happened, to marvel at the synchronicity of how the higher mind was capable of organizing events so that it would serve the idea of the theme you chose to explore in the most loving, creative, beneficial, joyful way possible, most playful way possible. You must learn that the physical mind and the higher mind need to work together in order to be the whole person. Because if, in that sense, you are only using your physical personality, your physical mind, in an attempt to figure out how everything is supposed to work, you are literally walking through life half-witted. You're only using half of your full mind. So the idea is to understand that you really don't have a whole mind until you form a reconnection and a relationship and a communication style with the higher mind that allows you free-flowing trust, free-flowing communication in that relationship of functioning like a whole being. Now, imagination has been given as part of the personality structure to allow it to understand that it always has access to the higher mind. Imagination is the conduit, the pipeline to the higher mind and from the higher mind. But again, when the ego structure becomes so crystallized, so densified that it thinks it's the one in charge and has to figure every single little thing out, it will not trust the imagination. It will shut the door to the imagination because it seems unreal, superfluous, having nothing to do with what the ego has determined are the necessary things it must do to get where the person wants to go. So it will close and constrict that pipeline, and it will not trust the imagination because it seems like the imagination is irrelevant, has nothing at all to do with what the ego has determined are the necessary steps. But what it has done by doing that is it has constricted the flow of communication coming from the higher mind that is actually the kind of information the physical personality needs in order to actually relax itself and move on through life in an effortless way. The idea, again, is to understand that once you form a relationship with the higher mind, once you form a balanced relationship with it, imagination is the conduit through which inspiration will come and in which you will allow the physical personality to know that it is in constant communication with the person up on the boat and that it will never be guided into a crevasse. It will never be guided into the mouth of a shark. It will always be guided straight toward the horizon that represents the dream and the theme that the personality chose to explore, and all the transitions can happen quite magically when those lines of communication.
Listen, you know what's funny about that example he's saying about like spirit is not going to lead you into a mouth of a shark. You know what I mean? But this is the belief system that people truly have when they're allowing the ego to do that very thing. That ego will definitely lead you into the mouth of the freaking shark. Like, we can simply look at life when we're being ego led to see where the path that led us down. I mean, for me, we talked about, relationships last week. When I looked at my past relationships, like, that shit was throwing me to the sharks, fam. You hear what I'm saying? So your ego definitely will lead you to the sharks in trying to logic its way and trying to force its way and keeping banging its head into the direction in which it needs to go. Because how this is set up is that you're going to continue to attract in your experience that which you believe. And so if you continue to bang your head up against the wall, it keeps telling you that you aren't good enough. It keeps showing you that you have these so-called issues that you believe that you have, that you simply just need to release the beliefs for, that it doesn't truly exist, right? It's just your idea of yourself that's been misconstrued, misled, and misappropriated by how the ego has learned to look at you based on what other people have said, based on your trauma, et cetera, et cetera. So it keeps telling you the lies that aren't true, that you're unworthy, that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve. And so you keep banging your head up into the wall. And so what's going to end up happening is your ego will walk you into that metaphor of the shark's mouth. So again, you're being offered a choice. Are you going to be brave enough to take the easy road, which is really just listening to your higher self and trusting that it's going to get you in the place that it needs to go? Something to think about.
Are open. Again, we remind you of this. Very often, the ego might be willing to use the imagination a little bit, but again, it often subverts the use of the imagination for its own purposes, to reinforce its own ideas of what it thinks is the best way to allow something to manifest. The physical personality may be willing from time to time to create a vision, an ideal vision of the dream. It will create all the scenario. You have heard us say, and you've heard many say, visualize, visualize, visualize. Create a mock-up in your mind's eye, in your imagination, of the ideal scenario that represents to you the idea of your highest excitement, your highest passion. And this is a good thing to do. This is a positive thing to do. It is a beneficial and creative thing to do, to use your imagination and visualize what is a representation, the closest possible representation you can create with your physical mind of that ideal scenario that you say is representative of your passion, of your dream. But here is the key. It is only a representation. Now, this is not to say that what you imagine at that moment cannot come to pass exactly as you have imagined it. Oftentimes, it happens exactly that way, and that is all well and good. But the only reason it may have happened that way is you actually allowed a momentary opening and actually recognized what the higher mind was telling you was the representation of the best way for you. Nevertheless, here is where many individuals on your planet fall into the trap. Again, because of the ego structure's predilection for thinking it has to figure everything out and know how everything is going to happen.
Listen to this, y'all.
When the ego structure may make a vision that is representative of the ideal reality, what the ego tends to think, because it thinks of itself as the highest possible authority for your person, it tends to think that that vision it has created by using imagination in that way to paint that picture in your mind, it thinks that that's the highest possible way in which that reality could manifest. But from the higher mind's point of view, that picture that to the ego seems like the highest possible manifestational form is actually the lowest possible manifestational form. What to the physical ego is the ceiling, to the higher mind is the floor. It can go much higher than that. And in fact,
listen, what else do you need to hear after that? Like, what your higher mind has for you is way greater, way more expansive, way better in every way than what your ego can come up with. you might think that your ego might come up with some shit like, I don't know, win the lottery or something. I'll ring the mega billions. Could you imagine that? Now imagine that there's something better than that that exists for you, where you can have not only financial abundance and safety, but maybe you also have spiritual, mental, all the other L's, right? The whole thing. You could have the whole thing, not just the millionaires, but you could have millions and be happy, or billions and be happy. Like that exists? Because the idea is that there's either one or the other. And what your ego believes is the top of the top, that thing that it wants to hold on to as like the quintessential perfect scenario, is literally the fucking bottom. I'm sorry I'm talking so rough today, but it just is what it is. It's literally the bottom, fam. I don't know about y'all, but I think I want what my higher self has for me. Straight up. One's in the chat if you desire what your higher self desires for you. I would love to hear that. One's in the chat.
Actually go so high, so far, it can actually be beyond physical mind's capability of imagining how it could occur. That's why you do not need to insist. The physical mind and the ego does not need to insist that the picture it conjures up as a representation of the ideal scenario must be the exact way that it must manifest. Otherwise, something has failed, something has gone wrong. It is just used as a template to pass on to the higher mind the basic idea that represents, pay attention, the proper vibrational state of being that the physical being needs to experience in life in order to perpetuate its joy. The higher mind will take that template, take that representation, because after all, it exists in a template reality. It understands template language very well. That's its native tongue. Template symbols are its native tongue. It understands symbols very well. It will take that symbol and recognize that that symbol simply represents the proper state of being, the proper energy that needs to be created. And so the higher mind will then take that symbol and it will reach out to all the things it understands are available, all of the how can this happen sort of thing. And it will match those things to the proper template frequency and then bring that into the reality, the opportunities for the physical mind to act upon. But when the physical mind hesitates to act on the synchronicities that are brought to it, because the ego says, I don't recognize that as the template I set up, and doesn't trust that the higher mind could have actually brought it the opportunity it wants in a different form other than what the ego determined it should be, it will refuse to act on those things. It will refuse to recognize those as opportunities. Those opportunities coming from the higher mind will even be invisible to the physical mind. It just simply won't even know they are even there to be acted upon. And therefore, it will miss those doorways and will never walk through them and will never see the manifestation of its desires because it has been too insistent on the how and not allowed the higher mind to actually show the physical mind the true how, because the higher mind can actually imagine ways far beyond the physical mind's imagining of how such a thing could occur. So, all well and good to set up the parameter of a visualization for the physical mind, but don't insist it must manifest that way, because the higher mind might be capable of bringing it to you far greater than you ever imagined. Let it. At least that's our suggestion. It's up to you. So, now, many individuals have wondered, well, if the physical ego thinks it's in charge and attempts to shut out all other forms of communication because it doesn't trust them coming from the higher mind, how do I know the difference between when the physical mind is telling me, oh, this is representative of your excitement, and when the higher mind is telling me this is representative of your true excitement? How can I tell the difference? Because if the ego is attempting to trick me into staying its course, because it thinks if I veer off that we're going to die, it's going to dangle all sorts of carrots in front of me to get me to stay on that course. So how do I tell the difference between that kind of a carrot and the carrot that represents going in the direction of my true self? All right, fair question. It all comes down to what we have spoken of so often. It all comes down to excitement. It all comes down to passion. But again, we hear the ego saying, how can I tell the difference? How do I know it's really my true excitement? Now, this requires paying some attention to yourself, really paying attention to the true feelings. It does require at least a modicum of willingness, to tell the ego to shut the hell up. At least just for a moment, so that I can hear my true self. At least take a breath, at least take a pause, at least stop and wonder whether or not you are actually being shown something that is representative of a fear or something that is representative of a joy. Because we understand that when you're in that confused state, anxiety can actually seem like excitement. And excitement can actually seem like anxiety. But this is why it's so...
Okay. Oh, shoot. Sorry, my bad. I don't know why I keep doing that. Okay, here's the thing. We've talked about this before, right? It's been several months now. Excitement that you get, the butterflies in your stomach when you experience fear or when you experience extreme joy or excitement in general, sometimes it's tough to know, right? It's like when you see someone, the example I like to use, because I don't know, it's just the first thing that comes to mind. Let's say you see someone that's very beautiful or handsome or whatever, and you get that spark and that feeling, right? And you're like, oh shit, like, wow, like this excites me. Something about this is familiar, right? This is what he's talking about. This can be something that's for you and also not for you at the same time, right? Like you got to use a discernment to know the difference, because that feeling of excitement is the same. But it takes you following the breadcrumbs and understanding and knowing yourself to know what's up. I've been there where I ignored that feeling and I'm like, yo, something's telling me not to, but like there's just something about this that's just so exciting, and it's just like almost like toxically pulling to me. That's how I know that it's not for me. And then I had to learn the hard way. You know what I mean? But like to Bashar's point, you can't keep banging your head up against the wall. And if you keep doing that, you're gonna end up in the shark's mouth situation. Y'all hear what I'm saying? So be mindful. Understand that there is a difference, and that is how you can know the difference.
To take that pause, to allow yourself to at least be in charge enough, be willing enough to tell the ego to be quiet for a moment, so that you can get in touch with your inner being and tell the difference in the quality of the vibration of the emotion you are feeling at that moment with respect to the idea you are exploring. If you are quiet for that moment and willing to be open to be shown what it actually is, you will be able to tell the difference. You'll be able to develop discernment of the difference between the vibration of fear and doubt and the vibration of joy and certainty. You will be able to tell the difference, because that ability to tell the difference is built into you. It's built into your consciousness. And at that level, you all know the difference. But if the ego is making too much noise, if it's not allowing you to stop and think, it does that specifically to prevent you from being able to tell the difference, because it's afraid that if you tell the difference, it won't be in charge anymore. And to the ego, that means death, because it doesn't believe the higher self really exists. So it's all about finding that space of balance and peace within yourself that will allow you, even if only just for a moment, to allow the ego to be quiet enough so that you can use the natural mechanism of balance within your being that will tell you what the flavor of the emotion you're feeling is. And thus, by identifying the flavor of the emotion, that will then put you in touch with what kind of belief and definition you would have to have in order to be generating that emotion. And then you will know whether it comes from the physical negative ego or from the higher self, whether it is representative of fear, whether it is representative of excitement. But you need that moment of quietude. You need that moment of solitude. You need that moment of peace. You have to be willing to step back. You have to be willing to let it be all right to not know what's going on at the moment. You have to be willing to say, I don't know what's happening here, instead of just assuming it's this or that or the other thing. So anytime you find yourself in doubt about what you're experiencing, take that moment and say, I don't know what's happening, and that's okay. And in that moment where you have actually admitted that you don't know what's going on, you can find the balance, the quiet, the peace, the stillness that will actually then start to allow you to be more sensitive to the quality of the vibration of what's going on and give you more capability of having more insight as to what you are experiencing and what you are dealing with in terms of the physical mind or the higher mind. So that's the first step in forming the relationship, in reconnecting, in remembering who you are as a whole person. That's the first step, is just taking a moment of quiet, of pause, of stepping back into a neutral place and letting it be all right to not know what the answer is. As soon as you allow yourself to be all right in that balance point, you can allow the natural senses you were created with to begin to fill that stillness, to fill that little void of quietness, and they will begin to be heard. But you have to be quiet to hear them at first, because they have been suppressed for so long in your society that at first it will only seem like a whisper, but you'll recognize it. In the quiet, if you truly allow the quiet to happen, there will be no other sound, and thus you'll be able to recognize the quality of those little whispered voices for what they are. And as soon as you really start paying attention to what they are, you can start to guide yourself with them in the direction of your preference. And as you do that, bit by bit, and this may take some practice, it's all right, bit by bit, you will start to gain more discernment as to exactly what vibration is representative of what, and you will start to pacify the ego into understanding that it's not going to die, it's not going to be annihilated, that in fact this is what it really wants, because it is tired of laboring under such stressful circumstances. It is tired of bearing the weight, and you're going to take the load off and you're going to bring it along. It's not going to go anywhere. It is your friend. You love it. It is serving you. It is designed for a purpose of focusing you in the physical reality experience you wanted to have, in the theme you wanted to explore, and you cannot live without it. Literally, you cannot live without it.
Gang, aren't you tired of the weight of the world on your shoulders? Aren't you tired of banging your head against the wall? Aren't you tired of working jobs and having people in your life that aren't truly serving you? Aren't you tired of walking against the current? Aren't you just tired of it? We're doing this shit to ourselves. You have an opportunity to free yourself right now in this moment by being empowered by this information that is coming across to you, and apply it to your life. Sit in the silence. Take a moment before you make the decision, and trust and know that your higher self will shine through. But it takes you giving yourself a moment. Step away from the phone. Step away from the TV, step away from the gaming systems just for a moment sometimes. It don't have to be for like a long period of time. Go for a walk outside, take a breather, do that little meditation that we did earlier in today's in the earlier session part of the live, excuse me. Just take a moment, tap in with yourself. Let your higher self shine through. Trust what you're getting from your higher intuition and trust it. Wow, I stopped it at 5. Wow. I mean, started, yo. Wow. I mean, guys, the synchronicities are here. Like, we can see it for ourselves here. New beginnings, right? It's time for change. It's time for this major change to happen in your life. Your higher self is telling you, like, look, I got so much for you. And this is a pivotal time and energy to like really take this into a new space for yourself. So if spirit is telling you to leave your partner, do it. I'm gonna just name all the scary shit. If spirit is telling you to leave your job, do it. If spirit is telling you to open your own business, do it. If spirit is telling you to close one bank account for another bank account, do it. Do it. Like, just freaking do it, man. If spirit is telling you to go move to another state, do it. If spirit is telling you sell your house, do it. If spirit is telling you to go buy a house, do it. Whatever it is that you're freaking afraid of, bro, go do it. Because on the other side of that thing, your higher self has everything that your ego truly desires, that true safety, the material things, the spiritual things, the love, all of it is on the other side of just doing that thing. Like, the ego thinks that, oh, if I take this spiritual path, then I won't be able to buy a nice car. Like, will that mean that I won't be into cars and clothes anymore? You may not value it like you used to, but it doesn't mean that you won't get it. It doesn't mean that you won't experience it if that's something that you desire. But the ego will tell you some shit like, oh, if I'm on my spiritual thing, then I won't like this and I won't like that anymore. Like, nah, bro. Like, you deserve nice things. You don't think your higher self knows that? Your higher self wants you to have it all. That's what Bashar is saying here. It wants you to have it all. But the ego thinks that that's not the case. The ego thinks that it needs to take control. The ego thinks that it knows all the answers and it knows how to keep you safe, because you are disconnected from your higher self. You are disconnected in your soul because you come here and you forget, and you're under the influence of your parents and society and trauma and influence and the media and movies and music. Let me put something in your perspective that came to me this week that I find interesting. I was having a conversation with Britt, and I was listening to this Bashar thing, and it was just like mind blowing. And I'm just like, yo, the level of programming, it just came into my awareness. The level of programming is wild. Like, thinking about the idea of, actually, it wasn't this, it was something else I was listening to, excuse me. But thinking about the idea of angels, right? What we think angels look like, we've been programmed to believe what angels look like. Like, they have wings and they wear white robes and they have halos. That's what you've been taught, that's what angels look like. But what if that's not what they look like? And if you saw one, you'd probably freak the fuck out. You'd be like, yo, this don't look like the angels that I was told, because of programming. So let's bring it back to the cognitive dissonance comes in. So then cognitive dissonance comes in and it says, oh shit, this doesn't look like what I've seen angels look like. So this can't be real, right? We could talk about white Jesus and all that. Like, you got to understand the power of programming on your mind. So this is where the ego is in. It's in cognitive dissonance a lot. So when you're getting these divine ideas, it's going to tell you it's not possible. It's going to say, oh, that doesn't match up with what I thought I was supposed to do or be. You've been groomed all your life to be a fucking doctor, but the whole time, like, you're actually supposed to be doing herbs and medicine in a different way. But you're thinking that you're supposed to be like an actual, I don't know, a dentist or some shit, whatever it is. Right. But the ego is going to be like, yo, there's no money in herbs. Why would I do that? Like, insurance companies, they don't approve herbal packages for treatment. So you're going to be like, well, how am I going to make money? Like, people aren't really into, like, it's a small population in terms of the mass group that understand herbs or even are willing to try herbs as a method of healing. So all you're seeing is limitation. Even though you know, cognitive dissonance, you've used herbs to heal yourself. You having ginger ale, you having ginger tea, and you have an upset stomach, instead of taking Pepto-Bismol, you're like, yeah, Pepto-Bismol don't sit right with me. I'm doing ginger tea instead. But you'll allow that, but you won't go against the establishment. You're like, I need to be a medical doctor because that's what's going to give me prestige and that's what's going to give me safety in this life. All the while, you can have a successful herbal business today. Look how big herbs are today in comparison to what they were 10 years ago. Imagine the next 10 years what it's going to look like. Right? The numbers is that veganism, we didn't know that veganism would be $1 billion industry or business. If you would have said that to someone back in 2005, maybe even in late 90s, you're going to open a vegan restaurant. Now some of these vegan restaurants are going stupid. So follow what your promptings are. Follow what spirit is telling you to do. Follow your higher self. Do not allow your ego to bump into the logical mind and tap into this cognitive dissonance and completely ignore the very thing that you need to be doing to bring yourself the true happiness, to bring yourself the nice car and the things, the nice house, whatever it is, the materially that you like and otherwise, the love of your life. All of that is going to come when you are on your path. I keep saying this shit every single month. We talk about this in just different ways. We're literally looping around and we're just getting deeper and diving deeper every week and month on diving into you, because this, you have to understand, ultimately your mind has been programmed. That's the point. That's the point. Your mind has been programmed. You are a slave. What do we call it live last week? You're a slave to your trauma. You're a slave to your conditioning. No more. I'm trying to, something came to my mind. Was it in Amistad where he said, give us free? I don't know if that's the right movie. Yo, your soul is trying to talk to you. It wants to be free. But no one else is enslaving you but you. That said, let's put on the Namaste music again, because I feel like I talked to you guys very roughly. I want you to know that all of this was said with love. Guys, I will figure out a way to put a link to this video. If not, just watch it back, type this in, you'll find the shit. It's a great video. So much more from it. It's another, like, it's a whole 2 hours. So, like, yeah, tap in. If you feel comfortable. And thank you so much for coming tonight. You may have to watch this multiple times, and that's cool. Your reminder, love on yourself. Shit is going to get a little hectic over the next couple weeks to months, and it is okay. Everything is working out for you. You are safe. Just keep following your divine promptings and your divine guidance. And I promise you, everything will be okay. Everything is going to work out in your favor. Just have faith. Trust the process. know that you got this. Know that your higher self got this. Yeah.